It's just so good.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much indeed. Do you know what I've done? I've just hit the live button.
Oh, good, fantastic.
I just hit the live button because, well, I think originally, when we were trying to sort out the time difference and stuff like that, I thought we're going to have to record it. But then, knowing my own nocturnal habits, still not all the time, but still periodically, you just never know who is awake. And then, so there's one person watching already. So,
That's
yeah,
probably me.
yeah, there you go. No, it's Colin. Colin Goodsir's tuned in to say hello.
Hello, Colin. I've not. Well, Saxavor, I was with Colin. Hello, Colin. Blimey, there's a name from the past.
Yeah. So, what I should probably do. Let's do this. This is extremely rude, but I know that you'll forgive me in 1 second. Welcome to the JFDI show for another podcast, and we've got another of my military friends who, if you've just seen the first minute, Colin has already seen who it is. But if you've somehow come in just a minute in, then I'm going to introduce you again because he needs to have a bit of an introduction. Old Air Force friend of mine, Mr. John Knox, and I'm going to just leave it at that because I don't want to leave you back in that virtual green room for too long. Take you out. Introduction. How are you this evening?
I'm great. Well, it's not the evening; it's the morning. But
it's the morning. How are you this morning? Are you chipper?
I am mint. Yeah, fantastic. I've really been looking forward to catching up with you, man.
Yeah, I've just put you on to full screen, and I've just clocked your background because before I put it on the full screen, it was only like that big. So before we even touch music, tell me a little bit about what is right above your dome at the moment, and the blue frame right behind you. What's that?
So that's what my wife flies in. That's an F-18. It's not an F-18. She'll kill me for that. It's an EA-18G Growler. So it's a Super Hornet which has been modified, and that's what the wife flies in. She's an EWO, so she's in the back seat of that thing.
Fantastic. And what's the importance of what's actually up there?
Let me just check. So that is that's 6th Squadron, which is the squadron that Australia has for that aircraft type, and that's what she was, part of 6th Squadron. She's had a little bit of a break from the 6th Squadron. She had a couple of postings. She's had a bit of schooling time, so she's had a couple of years on the scholarship doing a PhD, and she's about to go back to putting her uniform on, get out of the university beanbags and become a RAFI again, and that starts in January. So,
oh, nice. Is she looking forward to it then? Getting back to it.
She is. I think she, like we all do, she probably misses it, but she's really valued and enjoyed a couple of years, like full-time PhD. She was doing it beforehand, but part-time, and you think, well, that's going to take 10 years or whatever. And then she scooped up a couple of years on scholarship, which was an amazing opportunity. And so she's got the I would say the lion's share of the work done. She might take another year or two to get it complete.
Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah.
Oh, nice. So
F3s is what she used to fly in the UK, and then that was in America, I think, when she first did that OCU in America.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think even I recognise them. I never was much one for being a spotter myself, but I knew what that was. I knew what that. I did have a standard.
There's a story behind that though, but that's her story, not mine.
Okay. Well, listen. Thank you for joining us, and I'm so glad that we did manage to get it sorted. So, just for those watching, listening, there's 9 hours difference between John and myself at the moment, so it's just a little after midnight when we're doing this, and John's been up fully morning routine. I don't know whether he's been out for a run or whether I know he's had the dogs out, all sorted, and it's just after 9 o'clock there. So, yeah, I'm really glad that we've got this sorted. The tunes, it seems, for yourself, they came out because, again, I've got an extended list. So you've already dipped into the category of providing enough songs for a JFDI radio show takeover. So,
and a bit of classic in it.
but do you know what? I love that. I love the different styles, the different sort of genres. It makes for everything, makes for interesting stories. So, yeah, and I kind of thought, do you know what? If you've got 15 songs, I'm going to see them all. Then I did kind of go. I just made a pretty pattern when you said choose a letter for the number. But the songs that we've got are fantastic. So,
Yeah.
should we kick off with the first one?
All right. Yeah.
So, and I'll just do them in the order that we you gave me them. So, John Denver and Annie's song,
Yeah,
is the first one.
Yeah.
Can,
Go on.
no, I was just going to say I can see a big smile on your face.
Yeah. So when we were kids, like I'm the youngest of 3 boys, and we had a great childhood, and that came from my parents. So like, my parents weren't musos, but they knew what they liked, and would listen to that. And my father was a massive Neil Diamond fan, and just like, again, they were really eclectic in their music loving. And I'll say right from the outset, by the way, I'm not a muso, and I like the songs that I like in the world. I don't necessarily listen to the words. In fact, more often than not, the wife and the kids laugh at me because I make my own words up when I'm singing along. So I'm not a muso at all, but I know what I like, and I kind of and I think John Denver specifically is very specific to my growing up. Like, me and my 2 brothers, we'd wash the Sunday dishes after dinner, and you'd be singing along and pretending to be, harmonized and all the rest of it, but really killing it, probably. And but yeah, John Denver was very reminiscent of my childhood.
Yeah. And whereabouts was that? Where was childhood?
We was just north of Newcastle, a little town called Cramlington. For those that have been to Boomer, they've probably driven past it on the way to Newcastle. Yeah, so, and that was a new town. It was originally a small like mining town, which then became one of these new towns in the early 70s. And my parents moved there from another place, Newbiggin. So my mum and dad were always around Newcastle area, but we lived in they lived in Newbiggin for the first 3 years of my life, which I don't remember at all. And apart from jumping through a glass, I'm reminded of jumping through a glass door into the back alleyway, which gave me this scar. And other than that, like, I have no, not even any memories that people talk about, because from 3 up, we were in Cramlington.
So what do you know about jumping through a glass door? Sorry.
So, like, the old mining houses and what have you, they were you'd have your like 2 up, 2 down, and you'd go into your backyard, which was, or for our house, was enclosed, and it had like a doorway into the back alley, but the doorway was one of those like wooden framed ones with a big sheet of glass in the middle of it, and it never had any glass in it, so we just jump through the hole. And so I'm led to believe, again, this is a story that's been told to me, and then one day they got it glazed, but I didn't realize and just jumped through it.
My lord. Like the budgie, when you get a budgie and you let it go, and it flies straight into the window. Oh my lord! And
Yes.
that's left you with a scar there.
Yeah, I think, I'm sure my mother told us that I
How
had
old
glass
were you?
in my eye, but I have no idea.
How old?
I was about 3. I must have been 3 or under.
Crikey.
So jump is probably not quite the right word. Maybe stumbled through.
Yeah. So was the proximity to an Air Force base ultimately anything to do with your reasons for wanting to join, or was it completely different?
No, I mean there's no military history in our family at all. Like I think my granddad was, as a lot of them were in the war, the Second World War. He was dragged into it, but like yeah. So there's no. I think I remember driving past Boomer when we were kids. We'd go off for the day or whatever with my parents up to sea houses or something, and I remember it was always that. That dome on the hill that we drove past. I really knew nothing about it. Even when I was applying to join up, I was a clueless little muppet, and I had no idea that my job might one day take me to Boomer. So, nothing to do with it.
But what was it that drew you to joining up?
It's probably a ridiculously long story, but I flunked school like so many of us Scopies seem to have that similar story. Like when I was a young lad, we didn't have an awful lot of money, and I think my brain got hooked onto like money's fairly important in life for what you want. We never want kids. We never wanted fun out. I had a great childhood, really loving. We didn't go on fancy holidays abroad or out like that, but I must have at some point unconsciously got in my head that money's important. And so from a very early age, I either had a paper round at like 13, 14. I was out delivering milk at 4 o'clock in the morning. And then I got a Saturday job in a shop. And so I had cash in my pocket from very early on. But when I'm out 3 days a week from 4 o'clock in the morning delivering milk, when I get to school, I'm then catching up on my sleep and not studying. And so I properly flunked school. I think I was the first year of GCSEs in '88, and my best GCSE. I'm not proud, but I'm not uncomfortable saying was a D, and it got worse from there. And so when I went to my oldest brother, always wanted to be a RAF copper. Ooh, I can hear the noises in the background. And he applied like several years before. They turned him down because he was a really smart lad. I say was, probably isn't anymore. And wanted him to be like a propulsion technician at the time. Wasn't He didn't want that. He wanted to be a policeman. He wanted to be a civvy policeman, but I think his eyesight wasn't good enough at the time or something. And so next best thing, military police. And eventually they came back to him a couple of years later and took him on, which was 6 months prior to me joining up. So the summer of '88, he joined the RAF as a RAF policeman. And we'd had a family friend who joined the RAF the year before. And I literally, having left school, I remember leaving school the last day of the last day of your days at school, walking out of the school gates and mates talking about university or college or, going on to jobs or whatever. I had no idea. It was really interesting when I think back to it, like what I didn't know about life in front of me was scary. And so I had no prospects other than milk round and a Saturday job. And I thought, what am I going to do? So I ended up going to CIO, and the rest is history.
Yeah, just like that.
Just like so many other people I've heard on your podcast, I went along, and they obviously were recruiting for Scopies at the time because I think I failed miserably for what I wanted, which was to be an aircraft technician. And they said, oh, but hey, what you'd be really good at is being an aerospace systems operator. What's that? Well, I tell you what, you'll be working for NASA in about 2 years. Oh, that sounds exciting. And there you go. This history.
Yeah, I was exactly one of those. I had gone through the aptitude test, wanting to be a weapons technician, and they said, not at this juncture in your life, young man. However, can we interest you in this thing called it? In fact, they didn't with me. They didn't offer it to me. How weird is this? And I don't know if I've mentioned this on another podcast, but about 3 weeks before, maybe a month before, I had gone and done my attestation and been through the sort of like the kind of final exams and stuff like that. Well, yeah, it was long before that. So exam sort of time. I'd been at a party, so I was still at school, and I had been at a party in the next village, and a mate from school's party, there was a guy that we used to be at school with who was home on leave from the RAF. And he told me that he had just learned how to operate radars, and he was doing this, and he gave me like a 20-second elevator pitch for a scopy, and I thought that sounds interesting. So when they told me no, you can't be a weapons tech, I said, what about aerospace systems operator? And they kind of went away and had a chat and come back and said, sign here. and that was it. Well, this is the thing. He was a guy called oh my lord, it'll come to me. It'll come to me. He didn't stay in. This is the thing. He didn't stay in. He did. I think he maybe started the training. He maybe didn't finish trade training. He what for whatever reason.
Not known to the rugby world then.
No, because this is the thing. When I arrived and at my first at trade training and then at Buchan, my first posting, nobody had heard of him. No one. So in fact, there was people that said that I'd like made him up and he didn't exist, and that I was just telling a story. But I wasn't. He did exist. I try to remember his name.
Truth in every story, mate. You were at a party. That's the important bit.
I was. Do you know what? It was a good party as well. It was good. Anyway, listen. Shall we move on to your next tune?
Yeah. You're going to have to tell me. I've not got them in front of me, so.
No, it's fine. I do. I've got them. So the next one, I absolutely adore. There's a number of people that I think of, and it's one of those. I think it's a lot of music just does this to me. It's one of those transports you immediately to a place and time, to surroundings. It's delight and groove is in the heart. Yeah. So what's this one? I know when it is, so I can only imagine.
So just before I tell you then, so where does it take you to?
For me,
Aye.
it takes me back to Buchan. It takes me back to, I think, so this was a song. It takes me to the Waverley Hotel, because it's like not quite the Granada, and it's like warm up, and you're just getting into the spirit of things, and I can always see. Do you remember Fiona Mackay? I always remember Fiona Mackay because she like wore this. She had this like transparent flipping raincoat, or I remember as this.
When
But
they called Flash
I remember. Sorry.
When they called Flash Max.
Well, if anybody was going to have one, it would be her. No, she. I've asked her to come on here actually. She ignored me. No, she didn't. But she reminded me of the girl in Delight. That's the thing, and I think that a lot of people would say, think Delight, groove is in the heart. I think Buchan. I think Crazy Days. I think a lot of Lost Days, where only music can bring the memories back sometimes. So that's where it takes me. Where does it take you?
Isn't it? Yeah. So I mean, similar thing, right? But at Neatishead, I was at Neatishead for my first posting, and I don't know why, but very specifically, it takes me to the picket post and the turnstiles and going in for the morning shift. So I don't know if the like that first or the most emotive moment for me is remembering it going into work one morning, like the morning after probably, and you know it was on in the radio and the picket post or something. But that's the moment it takes me to, is going through the R30 at Neatishead, which was the above ground facility.
Yeah.
I think that's now the museum, isn't it? But
yeah, I've not visited as the museum. So what would a day in the life of John Knox, that era, as you were walking into picket post? So just rewind about, an hour and a half from, like, where you were living, what getting up and getting into work would look like for you in the morning at that time.
Well, so first posting for me, and I was only there for about 18 months, and I looked about 12. I mean, that's probably me, suggesting I look older than I was, but I really was a kid out of. I looked like I'd fallen in a dressy up box. And so the reason I say that is because I didn't shave. Like I didn't think I'd grown my first pube at that point yet, and and so I remember Dougie Greenarsh, who I was big pals with, and still am actually. He used to wind him up because Dougie would have to. He had like that 9 o'clock shadow. He'd shaved a couple of hours earlier, and he needed another shave. And I didn't shave. Like I had to shave like once every 2 weeks or something. And I remember going through basic training and being ordered to shave twice because that's all I needed to. So yeah, I'd get up in the morning. I'd be ribbed by Dougie because I didn't have to shave, so I could get up, 20 minutes after him. We'd be in 4-man rooms at Brown Block at Coltishall.
Yeah.
And get the bus either get the bus, or if one of the lads was taking the car, you'd bum a lift or whatever after breakfast, and then park up and then into the in through the turnstiles, listening to Daylight, and then going to see the man and corporal, as I'm sure everybody remembers, and getting allocated your tasks, whatever it was, heights or so, tote or whatever it was, or go to the crew room you're on the next hour or whatever. And yeah, I just remember it. I remember it very fondly. Like, I don't think basic trade training prepared me for being a Scopy. I remember learning to write backwards, and other than that, not an awful lot.
Yeah.
Which obviously that did prepare me for doing tote. But other than that, like 8 weeks, I can remember 8 weeks at West Drayton, and like I can remember writing backwards and not an awful lot else.
Well, on that though, so here's one for you. In terms of you back then, after, at that period of time, so you would have been in the Air Force how long by that point?
Well, when I first got to Neatishead, probably like, so I joined at the end of September. We got to Neatishead in February.
Right. Okay. So it was only a few months. So yeah, basic and trade training. So I guess my question to you is, from that period alone, so it's, I guess, serious question. From that period alone, just through basic training and trade training to that point, what skill that was learned as early as those days still can you depend upon now to get you out of, whatever?
Yeah, getting in and social skills. I think social skills is a big one. So when you're dumped into a new working environment, and you just have to, learn to get on with people, and sometimes there's great people around you and it's really easy, and sometimes people are not so great and it can be tough. So learning to navigate that, I think that was that was a massive one because again, you know, I was on the train going down to Hereford with Chile, Paul Chilton, and I can't remember if there was anybody else. We were YTSs, so we went down to Hereford,
Yeah.
And then like other than knowing Chile, like I knew nobody on a whole flight of people at basic training, and you have to get on with folk because it's, you know, one of the main attributes you're taught is teamwork, isn't it? And if
Yeah.
you kind of integrate with folk, then you're in a lot of trouble very quickly. And I think that goes through life, really, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You know, there's not that many situations you find yourself in where you don't need to get on with folk.
Yeah.
So that
Can you think of? I love these ones. Can you think of a time during even like the early years of your military career where you've, you know, not, you know, life or death or even something not quite as serious, but where you've genuinely had to put those differences of opinion aside to just get the job done or to, you know, work your way out of a difficult situation?
Oh, for sure. Do you know what? I remember, like in the early years of being a Scorpion, one of the things that sticks with me most is not the attributes that I observed that were impressive, but the attributes that weren't. And I remember very early on working out, okay, I like him, I like him, I like him, her, whatever. And I remember more specifically the ones I didn't like and why I didn't like them. And it didn't stop me from getting on with those people, and or doing my best to connect with them and what have you. But I remember early on realizing, yeah, so I think that's kind of in answering your question is learning to ignore or whatever those negative attributes, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, no, I know what you mean. It's I can think. I guess the best examples, you know, like exercise kind of times, little squabbles that can, you know, kind of spill over. Yeah, always best diffused quickly.
Yeah.
Um, so, um, okay, so where are we up to in terms of music? Because I've got, in fact, let me ask you this now, because it's military career or otherwise. I, I I I started asking this, and I've asked it in a number of different guises, but I believe so. You know that and I've said to this to you, to everybody that I have on to this podcast, I genuinely have an interest in learning more about that person. And I hope that, you know, when I look at them as closely as I can, eye to eye, that comes across as, you know, genuine, because it is.
Yeah.
And I think I'm learning. It's my belief that in inviting people on, everybody has got their own JFDI story. That moment when you've kind of taken the plunge and not had a clue what was on the other side of what you were about to embark upon, but it's turned out just amazing, sometimes unexpected. You know, one of those. Can you, you know, is there one that kind of jumps to mind that you've, you know, whether it's during the military or since you've kind of left? Have you have left, haven't you?
Yeah, mate. Yeah, I'm still in the world. I'm a civvy contractor to the to defence now as
I,
Australia
and
defence.
I know we would have got to that sooner or later, but I was like, I'm pretty sure you are. I was pretty certain that you'd left
2012. 2012, I left.
12. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know what London Olympics. Yeah, there you go. So anyway, that little diversion's giving you a little bit of a chance to think about that one. That it is a bit of a big one to throw on a guest, but
Isn't it?
I think, well, I guess it's why I do this. It's, you know, I think everybody has got that kind of story. Um,
Mm. I
what?
am.
So,
Do you know what?
yeah, go
No,
on.
I was going to say, there's not like a single moment or episode that particularly sticks out, but certainly since, certainly since my wife and I got together, she's really and this is all a bit kind of but she's really enriched my life, right? And she's taught me that one of the major things that I get from her in life is about experiences, not about owning things or you know what car I drive or whatever. It's about experiences, and we got 3 kids, and so yeah, GFDI question, I think it's almost how we approach life now. There's so many things we've done that probably before Sally I would never have done. Um, whereas now we kind of just, we just have a go at stuff, and we've had some amazing experiences in life, whether it's backpacking around Cambodia and Laos, or
Wow.
moving to Australia, or deciding to start running ultras or doing triathlons, or and it's like, just give it a go, and it's I've heard you talk about it. It's all about the journey. Like, whenever you get across a finishing line, or you achieve a thing, or buy a thing, if that's your bag, you save up and buy a thing, and that's it. Well, that to me is not what it's about. It's about the journey to get there, right? And
yeah, and it's and remembering as much of it as you can.
wow.
Remembering those moments, because we don't ever get them back.
Which gets really hard.
It does when you get to our age. Yeah, it does. It does. So, so that you just basically reeled a whole load of them off. So you mentioned there, talking about backpacking around Cambodia. You talked about moving to Australia, and then you talked about just starting to run ultras, just kind of like off the back there, like it was nothing. That to me is 3 pretty significant JFDI stories in their own right. So which one of those, if you were to stand up in front of a room of people to do a talk on, I'm freestyling here. Which one of those topics would you talk on, and what would how would you summarize it?
I guess in the context, it would differ depending on the context of what you're chatting about, right? But
Well, you get to choose. You choose.
well, the backpacking thing, like, we just so when we came across to Australia, I'd left the RAF, and Sally came across on exchange. She was fighter controlling at the time, and we came across and did the exchange in Newcastle to the RAF base there. And while we at some point during that posting, she'd been convinced to come and join the Australian Air Force, which we decided that's what we would plump for, which is why we're here now. And when we knew we had to leave at some point, so she could leave the RAF and then join the Australian Air Force. And so when we were planning to leave, we had hoped we would do like a whole backpacking, massive, like couple of month version of Southeast Asia. And the reality that came about was we had a much more condensed time frame. So we ended up just doing Cambodia and Laos, and we had 3. The kids at the time were 5, 7, and 9, and we had so we were on our way back to the UK prior to leaving the RAF and joining. You have to be off Australian soil to join the when you're doing a lateral transfer, so you have to leave the country. She went to the Australian embassy in London and joined there, and then we came back across. Sorry, digress. And so we decided that, as with a bit of leave that Sally had, that we do this backpacking trip, which we had to condense, so it became Cambodia and Laos. And we just thought, let's do it differently, because you could go book holidays and, you know, excursions and this, that, and the other. And we just thought, well, again, there's no way. Sally thought we should do it this way, and I must admit I was a bit nervous, because I like to plan, and, you know, I don't know what it is about me. I'm not the most naturally adventurous type. But I'll get on board if somebody's keen for that as an idea. And so we decided that we'd have a rucksack each, kids as well, and you'd have 3 sets of clothes, one to wear, one to wash, and, you know, one for whatever that's probably dirty, needing a wash, and whatever necessaries. And we'd fly to Cambodia and Laos and do that. And I think we did about 3 weeks, maybe a week and a half in each place. And we took a whole bunch of like stationery as well, because we knew we were going to go and visit a couple of like towns that did their own schooling and stuff. And so we were going to go and donate some stuff. And so yeah, we just had it. It was an amazing experience. And again, it's seeing different cultures, right? And even Cambodia and Laos, that are right next door to each other, they're different in themselves, you know. And it was, wow, what an experience. We had a lot of fun. We had a lot of wow moments. You know, Cambodia's got a real crazy history, and, you know, went to see like the killing fields, and did some amazing fun trips and stuff as well, but some real harrowing trips. And, you know, just and introduce to the kids to that as well. I think that's one of our things, is we like to expose the kids. We don't ever shy away from difficult conversations with kids, or, oh, that's a taboo subject, you shouldn't talk to a child at that age about that thing. And we've always been just expose them to it. If they're educated, then, you know, there's nothing, you know, you're not going to hide from anything. Or
what would you? I was just going to say exactly what you touched on there. Sorry, I'm just adjusting the light here.
That's mine's as well.
If I was to ask your children their favorite memory from your trip to Cambodia, what would they say? Or would they maybe say something different, or do you think they'd both say the same thing?
I'm not even like, they'd probably struggle to remember bits, because they were, like I say, 5, 7, and 9, and it's and that was it was quite a few years ago. So and it's funny, because, you know, Sal and I do laugh, because the kids are so privileged, as it were. Like, we've been to Japan on holiday, we've been some amazing places, all under the guise of life experiences, right? And the kids are like, I can't remember, was that Cambodia or Japan? You know, and it's like, seriously, privileged little brats. But so I don't even know that they would remember, or if they did, if it was specifically from that. But like, we did this glowworm tour, where you floated on these big inner tubes through this cave system, and you saw these glowworms and what have you. That was a pretty amazing experience. And I think it was quite harrowing as well. I tell you what, the kids do remember is we went to one of these places that rehabilitates kids that have got limbs missing from, you know, because obviously it's a poor country, and quite often what they do is they go out digging for unexploded devices, and to get the metal off them and stuff like that. And more often than not, they go off, and kids lose their lives or limbs. And we went to this one particular town and this area within it, and they rehabilitate and help with building prosthetic limbs for the kids.
Right.
And they remember that. They remember, like, and we remember buying a book to support this place. And it was about a story about a kid who'd done exactly that. And we went to a small area within this one specific village, and these people were melting down metal, and we ended up buying a whole bunch of spoons and stuff like that, which we've still got in the drawer now from them to support them. And they're doing exactly that. They've got these hollowed out bricks, and they're melting down metal and reforming it into things that either they can sell or they can use, you know. And it was like, and the kids talk about that, you know, and it's and I think stuff like that is so valuable, you know, on so many levels. Like, they realize how privileged they are as we are in the Western society, and I think stuff like that is probably what they remember.
Yeah, and it's important stuff to see, like you say. It just, those little seeds planted at a young age, I think, like you say, invaluable life lessons.
Yeah.
What a gift to give your children.
Well, you know, it's I'm not even sure that Sally and I view it like that, but it's like it's life experiences. There's so much. You can take them to Disneyland, or you can, you know, have done that as well while we're in America, you know, and but I think there's value in so much more, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Here's one for you. In terms of life experiences, is there one detachment posting that came up that you were maybe on the surface of it a little bit apprehensive about, not sure about, but you went for it anyway, and it turned out to be maybe one of the best of your career?
Oh, so many. Like, I have very few negative experiences, mate. I look back on my career so fondly, but I think the one that probably sticks out in a positive sense is going off the Stan in 2007. And because I guess it was the one time in my career where I put together the skill sets that I'd been taught all my career in, I don't like to use the word, but in anger, you know. We spend all of our lives just training, right, and supporting that peacetime effort on a.
So you did it for real.
Yeah, do it for real. And do you know, one of the real learning lessons I remember for that, and I had a fab time. I grew professionally so much out there, and experienced so much. But I realized while I was out there, and I think I didn't realize at the time, maybe I did, but it was more in reflection, that I'm ultimately, I'm a big softie at heart, and I'm not really into this whole war-y thing. And when I experienced so many people's behaviors, again, going back to that, like, almost first original points we were talking about, is that I observed some behaviors and attitudes that I really didn't value. And again, that I don't know if that was because of the whole bravado around that environment, and people have to feel you have to behave like that because we're at war and we're doing this thing, and it's an austere environment, and, you know, and there's some real tough people walking around the bases where we worked, so therefore you have to portray that. But I remember just thinking, it's not an environment I like or enjoy.
Yeah.
And some behaviors, some specific behaviors, like, you know, things that people G'd up about, you know, when the Medi helicopters would come in and land next to us, and people would be whooping and yarring and about because they've got some enemy on board or something. Wasn't funny anyway. I always thought I was a bit more roughy tufty, but I worked out very quickly that I'm not.
Do you think that in any way that sort of planted a seed that became thoughts that germinated down the line that resulted in you leaving eventually?
No, because I really enjoyed the job. The funny thing is, I left because it supported our family dynamic at the time. We didn't plan for me to leave at the time. It was almost a knee-jerk decision at the time. Sally was due to be posted. She'd had the 3 bouts of maternity leave, and we'd been lucky. We'd chosen chosen postings that would be co-located, and we knew we had a finite period of time where we were going to be able to enable that. And at some point, she was going to get posted away, and we'd have to kind of manage that family dynamic of being split. And we weren't for that, so we just decided one of us should leave. I was coming to the point where I would get my pension, and so that there was the decision made right there and then. It was quite easy.
Okay, so it was.
I was loving work. I really enjoyed it at the time.
Yeah. So what were you doing at the time that you left? What were you doing? What was your last posting?
I was down the bunker at Boomer, fighter controlling. I think I'd gone back to ops and just doing shifts, the 2 days, 2 nights, 4 off thing. For the last few months, because again that suited our family dynamic, and Sally had like a day job. I think she was either at not Air Force headquarters, ASAC's force headquarters at the school, or and before that I think I was like in the training section, like DCTO or something like that.
Oh yeah.
Helping out with the training and what have you. And I was on the school before that. I was one of the weapons instructors, the fighter controller instructors.
All right. Okay. Yeah, sure. Nice. So you were loving that at the time, anyway.
Loved it. Yeah. It was. Yeah.
Brilliant. Right. Listen. Let's move on to your third song. Where you're yapping away. And let me just double check before we move on, because I think Colin was certainly watching for a little while.
We're on lonesome, probably, man. It's middle of the night.
He said, I don't know if you can. Can you read that?
Yep, I can. Yeah.
He said,
Colin's legend.
Where were you at Saxa with him? Was it?
Yeah. I think Colin came from Boomer. Did he? If I remember rightly. He wasn't at booking with you, was he?
No, you're right. You're absolutely right.
I went up in December 90, and I think Colin came up early the next year. I think he came up pretty soon. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. We've got Colin's watching. Oz Smith is watching.
Oz. Oh, I remember Oz, legend. Like, all these people who you're not connected with anymore, but a lot of memories of Oz. He was a ex Regio, wasn't he? Top legend of a guy. I remember him.
Oz was my senior man at West Drayton on our trade training course. Oh, right. Honestly, and I mean, Oz will tell you, I caused him so many such a pain in his backside. Myself and Pat Penn, we not intentionally, but we made his flipping life harder than it should have been.
Wild kids or what? Or
is that what? Sorry,
were you wild kids at West Drayton or something? Or
I mean, it's not really for me to say, John. I Oz has said, RAF regiment forever.
I remember Oz. If I remember rightly, it was Oz and Mitch Thornley. I think they were the only two RAF. There would have been more, I'm sure, but poor lads they're the real RAFies, right? Tough lads, and they probably got some kind of injury and had to remuster to be in Scorpies.
Yeah,
and they were both legends as well.
There you go. That's Oz's thoughts on me and Pat. Biggest pair of idiots, out of control. Funny. Yeah. Hey, Oz, listen, mate, Karen will probably tell you that at 52, nothing's changed. Anyway, back to the show, Mr. Knox, and your next song, if we might. So you've gone for a more modern. This sounds like you're down with the kids with a Scouting for Girls song. She's so lovely.
Right. So that this is a family one. I originally, when I was writing down my songs, and as you've seen, I couldn't get it down to 5. You had to help me choose that. It was going to be that John Legend one because I wanted to have a specific one for Sally because she's a real, rock in my life. But then so that would have been the John Legend one or the Stereophonics one. No, sorry, not Stereophonics. The Maroon 5 one. Sally and I's we kind of fell in love to the Maroon 5 album. I can't remember which one it is, but with that song on. But then I expanded that a bit because with 4 or 5 songs, you can't really lump that many subjects into that. So I expanded it to family, and the Scouting for Girls one. Like when I left the RAF in 2012, or it's actually 2011 when I left. Officially, it was 12 by the time you have your leave and what have you. But Sally was really generous with supporting me at the time, and I was a bit of an eco warrior. Like I wanted to take on the world and live off the grid, and got some hilarious stories. Anyway, exactly, and
Mate, I'm with you there.
what we did was with my lump sum when we left the RAF, we'd had we sold houses and stuff, so we had a little bit of cash, and we bought a place out on Annick Moor, which had a couple of acres with it, and this beautiful it was an old railway cottage, the type where when the railways were what they were and it was built, they'd have them so far along the railways where the people would go along. The worker's job was to go along with big wooden mallets and knock the railway tracks back into alignment as the trains, chundered up and down the tracks. And so the people prior to us had built on it. It was like a Harry Potter house. It had all these extensions put onto it. But it was beautiful, and it had this land, which was the most important bit to me. And we ended up getting chickens and pigs, and growing our own veggies and solar panels on the roof. We had a borehole for the water, and it was like. And going back to what I was saying, Sally was generous enough to allow me to explore this.
Yeah,
and so we did. We lived the good life for a little while. It was bloody hard work, and the reality is, we now live in a 500 square meter block with fake grass because we realized that life is so hard. We have now flipped it 180, and we live so much the opposite of that now because it's a hard life. And like Sal went off deployment when she finished maternity leave with our youngest at 1, and I'd just left the RAF. So as a stay-at-home dad, I had a 1, 3, and 5-year-old, and Sally went off to the Middle East for 6 months, and it was like with chickens and pigs and and all this stuff, and I'm a single parent, and it was like, what the heck have I done? What have I wished? When they say be careful what you wish for.
Yeah.
Well, that was it. It was, but we lived a dream for a short while.
How long did you live that for?
About 4 years. We bought it in 2011, and we left in 2014 to come out here. So 3 years. And
what was the biggest thing you learned from that 3 years?
That Sally would not support me in us wearing clothes made out of plastic bin bags. That kind of life.
What I'm hearing there is that you can rely on your wife for a lot, but there is a line that you cannot cross. I've learned that lesson as well, my friend.
Yeah. But you know what? The real lesson was that was a dream. Like, I'd buy magazines about self-sufficiency and had all the books how to do it, and I'd watched Gardener's World and all the rest of it, but the reality is it's blinking hard work.
Yeah.
Like we lived on Annick Moor, and even though we'd have raised beds for veg plots and all the rest of it, the moor would come in, creep in, and claim the land back for itself. So you literally were weeding 24/7. We did anyway, and just to grow a few carrots and potatoes, you know. So that was the biggest lesson, was that it's blinking hard work. And then 3 kids, and one of the parents bugger off for 6 months.
So you were on the flip side of what a lot of our friends will have experienced, that you've been the stay home parent.
That was a massive journey as well. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm going to say what was the biggest challenge, but I guess you've kind of listed them all off. 3 kids on your
Do you know what a real thing that sticks in my mind from that time? I guess I wasn't the only stay-at-home dad, but you know, it was that transitional era where it was, you know, it was predominantly women that did the stay-at-home bit, right? And I remember it being specifically we get some but I remember it being a lonely time, because when Sarah would go off to work and I'd be at home, I'd go to all the toddler groups with the little ones and stuff, and but you can't, as a bloke in that predominantly female environment, I could try and connect with the women, but they'd be judging each other if they're chatting to this bloke and be seen and to be you know, encouraging me into their social circles, like, oh, look, they're inviting the bloke in. And I couldn't just ask a woman to go out and meet for coffee with the kids, because again, all that judgment. And so that was a really tough time. But you know, growth again out of it.
Yeah, well, I'm just going to say, I mean, that's so during this period, you're not just kind of transitioning from like the disciplined, structured world of the RAF to a civilian role. You're kind of transitioning to, as you've said, being a stay-at-home dad, with its own kind of challenges, its own journey. So, I mean, how did you kind of find your, you know, new rhythm? Did it take a bit of adapting to, or did you
I
just
think
did you
it
just
rode
get
me
your head
for,
down?
yeah, well, literally was head down, bum up, as they say. It rode me for a while. Like there wasn't an awful lot of opportunity for me to develop a routine. Life was a routine, and I just got on and you know, rode the journey. Because it was real busy. Especially that first 6 months when Sal deployed.
Yeah.
That was shock. And do you know what? At the time, my dad was incredibly supportive. We'd lost my mum a few years earlier, and my dad was still going through a period of you know, learning to cope at that point. But I think we leaned heavily on each other at that time, and he still lives down in Cromington, but he would come up to Annick, and he'd either spend a night with us or a couple of nights, or come up for the day and help out. And he was incredible at that time. Certainly for that first 6 months when it was solo ops, you know, solo parenting, he was incredible to support in that time. Yeah, and we had some great friends around us as well. You know, we'd made a small little community of friends in Annick that we still have. We still keep in touch with them. Thankfully to this wonderful media that we have these days. It's incredibly lucky.
So I'm guessing it was whilst you, because I'm guessing that you moved from there directly over to Australia, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So I'm guessing that would also be a bit of a culture shock in itself, and with its own challenges. So you've gone from the military to you know, stay-at-home dad there to moving to Australia. and over a period of what, about a year or so, or about I guess from when you had left
Aye.
when you ended up in Australia, that would be what, about a year or so.
No, 3 years.
3 years. 3 years.
Yeah. Yeah, so we bought the house, well, just as I was leaving the RAF, and had that for 3 years, and then moved to Oz in the middle of 14. And again, culture shock. Yes, Australia is, it's classed as a Western society, but culturally it's different. There's some very personality differences. Culturally, it's different. I don't know if, I know you've had Lisa on, and I'm great pals here, by the way. I'm the luckiest bloke in the world. So just in the next suburb is Rob Weir, who I'm super pals with in the RAF, and another Sax RI2, Colin will remember. And he's, him and I are best pals over here. It's fantastic. We're kind of mammals, middle-aged men in Lycra, go out cycling together and stuff. Got myself lost there. Senior moment. What was I talking about? The people, Lisa and Rob, and culturally it's different. I'm just going to shut this door because the dogs have come in.
All right.
I'm just going to shut this door, love.
Has anybody got any questions for?
Sorry, the kids have just come in from volleyball, and the dogs have been let in, and they're going mental.
All right, that's okay. It's all good.
Yeah.
It's all good. No, you were just talking. What I was going to ask you on that that move. So I was actually going to ask about nature, because you've gone from a bit of the eco life, the eco warrior. What was it that you said? The eco warrior, stay at home dad. And you've kind of taken the journey over to Australia. What I'm interested in, because Australia has its very own unique sort of wildlife, right? And landscapes, lovely, beautiful country. Is there an encounter with Mother Nature in Australia that's kind of, because, and I remember this a few times when I first visited, that's taken you back in a way that you've never experienced in the UK, that in a different way, where you just truly appreciate that beauty of somewhere truly extraordinary, and it might be something grand, but it might be something ever so small, but it just catches you. Do you remember?
I think the landscape is beautiful. Like, it's different from the UK, but there's times I remember when we lived in Newcastle and we drive down to Sydney, and there'd be a particular bit just in the north of the in between, I guess, north suburban Sydney and the central coast, and that you'd go through this, like, right on the edge of a whole bunch of islands, and you'd go over these really high bridges, and there'd be houses that seem to be sticking out of rock faces and stuff. And it's something, I don't know, there's a period in my life, whether I was a kid when I played with Action Man or what, but it would take me to a point in my life and I'd just be like, wowed, it's amazing. And we've been, again, like, experiences, we've been all over Australia, to the middle, to Uluru, and or the only state we haven't been to is WA, to Perth. And the landscape is amazing. And sometimes you go on these little holidays up to North Queensland and you see the bush, what they call the bush, and it's like, and you can see the vastness of it. And we quite often say, like, if you go on a bushwalk, you do not, like the old movies, don't go off the path, do not stray off the path, because if you do, Mother Nature will eat you up. It's so vast. And those big red earth scenes, like you see in Crocodile Dundee and stuff, it's like, It's beautiful. It's not the rolling green hillsides of England or Scotland, you know, beautiful West Coast Scotland, Loch Ewe, where I've spent many a detachment. But it's different beauty, and there's beauty everywhere, right? But it's
yeah. How
yeah.
long, can I ask you, this just a cheeky question. When people started talking to you about the bush all the time, when you're in Australia, yeah, how long did that cheeky Geordie scamp kind of like chortle to himself inside? How long did it take for that to subside, or do you still think
it hasn't yet? Yeah. You know, and again, talk about the cultures and language differences, right? So the wife flies in an aircraft that they call a growler, and they call their personnel in the military members. So she gets 2 members in a growler, and you know, well, you see, your response would only come from a British bloke, because the Aussies would just go, yeah, and
what's so funny? Yeah, I'll tell you what's so funny. He said, got 2 members in my growler.
so
I love it. I love it. What's the biggest difference between the Australian culture and the UK culture that you witness on a day-to-day basis?
They're tough. I think the odds, and you know, I don't even know. I don't know that this is a difference, but in my experience, they're a tough, heavy banter lot. And I can totally understand if you think about the origins of where the modern Australians come from. You know, it would have been tough when they first came here. You know, whether you were the soldiers or the inmates, right? It would have been like, and we've been to the various encampments that tell the history of it. It would have been a tough living, and if you were a inmate that tried to escape, well, you've got nature and all of its wonders trying to kill you, as you try to escape from the guys that are trying to shoot you. You know, it's got a tough heritage, and so they are a tough people that come from that.
Oh,
And
yeah, yeah.
and so
They're less.
they're banter heavy, and I've never been a good banter merchant. Like I'm as I said earlier, I'm a big soft shite, but so you know, like I enjoy banter, but I'm not very good at it, and it definitely is, you know, again to get into the environments, you have to learn to play the banter game.
I
I'm
could,
not good at it, but I'll have a go.
yeah, I couldn't agree more. I've always found is if the better that you give back, the more that they enjoy it. But you're
But it's like a
absolutely
game,
right.
right? There's no nastiness about it. It's a game.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you've hit the nail on the head for me. They're kind of less jolly hockey sticks and more fucking boomerangs, you bastard.
By the way, yeah, 100%, yeah.
I do.
But it's and I struggled with it. I think early doors, I struggled with that cultural difference. Certainly when I started working out here,
Right.
and
Tell us a bit about
well, so I very quickly worked for a charity when I first came out here. That was a very supportive, inclusive environment. Not that the other environments aren't inclusive or whatever, but it's just different. But I worked for the two jobs I've had full time since I've come back to work. I worked with Raytheon on a military contract program. Do I get a lot? I mean, honestly, I get so much stick for being a pom, and it's all part of the banter. I'm just looking at Oz's comments there. I don't know if you're looking at it, Graham.
Yeah, yeah.
But again, because I don't react how they want you to react. I don't get riled up and go "Oh," and give it back. I'm just like, I'm not a pom, mate. I'm an Aussie now, you know. And it's like big funny. So it doesn't react well. It doesn't get them. They can't G me up like they want to. Anyway, but I do get it all the time, Oz. What was I saying? Yes, jobs. So I worked for Raytheon for a couple of years, doing another military contract, and really enjoyed that. And then came across, and I work for the Super Hornet sim now. So I work in Southeast Queensland's best gaming machine, and I work in the sim environment, supporting the Super Hornet training.
Oh, fantastic!
Yeah, so it's
enjoy that.
Love it. I love it. Real high performing teams. Proper professionals. They just knuckle down and get on with it. It's a great environment, and a little bit of that flavour of that military still, which I don't know anything different to that.
Yeah. So here's a question before we go on to your next musical choice. Yeah. I love this question, and I guess it's very timely in terms of like talking about Aussie culture, but talking about that sort of moving between jobs as well. So I guess, and I've known you a little bit, and I think we probably, depending on who you talk to, definitely grown up a little bit. I'm just, before I ask this question, there's somebody else has dropped in to say hello.
Hello, Eddie. Oh my, I don't have a. Would you say I don't have a Geordie accent now?
I think you do still have a Geordie accent, John.
Definitely. And I hear Eddie completely. Do you know? I think my Geordie accent, it did change over the years, because if you rock up to day one in the RAF and you're, oh man, Geordie, nobody understands you. You're like that guy in the garage out of Alan Partridge, aren't you? Everybody's like, what? Same as Davy Kinnaird, man. Half of the RAF never understood a word he said.
I'm only from 5 minutes down the road from him originally. Sometimes I had to. Well, no, I'm lying. That's terrible. Davy's an amazing man.
Legend. But I would definitely say my accent has softened over the years for sure. I don't think I'll ever end. I'll not be one of these guys that morphs into an Aussie accent. I think I'll go to my grave speaking with a bit of a Geordie twang.
Well, I still think you've got it, but Eddie apparently said bollocks.
I think he disagrees.
I think he disagrees as well. So what I was going to ask, see, everybody that I can see on that's watching, and correct me if I'm wrong, Eddie Budd, Oz Smith, Colin Goodser, every single one of you gentlemen, and yourself, John Knox, and maybe me a little bit. I think maybe everybody falls into that category at certain points in our life, just enjoying those moments of pushing boundaries, perhaps. And that doesn't necessarily mean, being destructive or misbehaving. I know it has in the past sometimes, but those kind of, stepping out of your comfort zone moments, those like not, just like external boundaries, but personal boundaries as well. Mm-hmm. Can you think of a moment like that, that kind of stands out for you, since you've left, since you've been in Australia, and I'm thinking about ultra marathons.
That was definitely going to be one of two answers. Yeah, so 100% that, and it's not. And do you know what I found most interesting has not been the again, it's been a theme here, is not the crossing the finish line and getting the medal, but it's the journey of getting there. And also as well, that just what you touched on there, pushing the boundaries, is going to what you feel are your limits, and or hitting the wall in a endurance event or whatever, and realizing that you can still progress through that, and treating that as a, even if it was the race itself, you break halfway through it, or you get to the finish line or whatever, and then realizing that then becomes part of the journey for the next thing, and I think that's definitely Yeah, 100. And I've also like you are as well on this journey of self-discovery. Like I've started to become a lot more um introspective and open about what the world has out there. I listen to a whole load of these woo-woo podcasts and stuff, um and it makes you look inwardly, or it makes me look inwardly and and assess my life and question a whole bunch of stuff. And I've never been that kind of guy. I've always kind of ambled through life, if anybody was that kind of person, it would bounce off me, and I wasn't that bothered about it. Drink another beer, it's fine, life's good, and get on with it.
Yeah.
And well, I stopped drinking for one back in 2015, and um, and I don't think that's part of it, but I think as I've got older and I had time on my hands and became a bit more reflective and what have you, I think it's been really interesting. I'm still on that journey, right? I'm still like, there's loads going. Love your whole Wim Hof thing and the festival. You've not talked about your festival. I want to hear about that, but the I just there's a lot of life out there to explore, right? And I think if I just single or tunnel visioned all through my life on the things that I know and like, and don't explore the other bits, then life would be a bit shallow, wouldn't it? And I don't know.
Yeah. Well, you can't have the highs without the lows, But at the end of the day, I think the thing that I'm realizing much more, recently is that actually, when you understand that the reciprocal lows will come with those highs that you seek, that looking for a life that's, maybe a little bit more balanced or maybe a little bit more appreciative, that, if you are going to seek those highs, whatever they may be, then be aware that you're going to have to deal with what comes after it. So,
Oh, for sure.
in that balance, I think the thing that's become ever more clear is that what's most important is that you just try and be there, whatever those moments hold, and actually look at every moment. And I'm much more believe in this now, that especially as our years tick by, that every moment that we have, even though our perception of some stuff that goes on in life might be that that's shit, or oh, why did that happen to me? It's like, well, do you know what? If you look at it from the perspective that, yeah, you might not have expected that, but if you can see the good and take the learning from that situation, then do you know what? Just being here right now is actually the most wonderful gift that we'll ever have.
Oh man, absolutely. Do you know? And I'm not particularly good at that, living in the moment. I'm getting better. I think the time period between having a moment and then having the time to think about it, observe it, reflect, and wish I was back at it so I could have been in the now at that moment, that's decreasing, but I'm still very much I look back on the moments rather than,
Yeah.
observe the moments at the time. I'm not particularly good at that.
Yeah, but I think that it's one of those, unless you give it some thought, then actually it's like anything, unless you give anything some thought, how are you ever going to get good unless you try to put it into practice? And I think that where I found in the past, I was very, very good in situations, of like when I've been meeting up with people saying, "Oh, we don't do this enough. It's been ages since we've done this." Or in the middle of a great conversation, say, "We should really do this again soon." And it's like, why don't you just forget about the fact that like you maybe should have done it earlier, because you're here right now together,
Yeah.
and just enjoy that as well. And I think I'm talking, like I said to you, had a lovely meal out with a couple of neighbours this evening, and that one thing came round once. It was like, oh, we should have done this sooner. It was lovely, but I just sat there smiling through the meal. It was great. It was made even more entertaining that my pal necked on the gubbins of 2 bottles of white wine, so he was extremely entertaining by the end of the evening. But you get my point. Yeah, you see, it's like just, you know, those moments up until now, well, they're what brought you here, but just enjoy right now, this very moment. I'm getting better at it. And do you know what helped me? And again, it's like you say like woo-woo, but if it wasn't for finding the right kind of meditation for me, that I've always been about, you know, in the last 10 years, that sort of having a more mindful approach to life, but actually finding, and I know again it sounds crazy, I have a meditation coach, I have a meditation teacher, and he's an amazing guy. I've got written a couple of books, and he teaches Ascension. He's an Ashaya monk, and honestly, it's another level of awareness, but just being able to, you know, just be awake a little bit more, I think. Yeah, it's a wonderful thing. Anyway, sorry, I'm gabbling on.
Well, I love it, but you know, hey, we're having a conversation, aren't we? It's not just I'm really interested about the meditation bit because it's again being aware to these signs in your life. It's becoming. I'm getting a whole bunch of arrows hitting me at the minute that are in that ballpark as meditation, what have you. So, what would your advice be to kind of where to start to have a dip into meditation? Because I'm pretty time poor, certainly in the mornings where I think that meditation would benefit me most.
Yeah.
But if I wanted to, whether have a read about it or research online or whatever, what would you recommend?
Easiest thing is probably, I would say, certainly if you don't have a lot of time, I would download something like Headspace or Calm. There's like, you know, like one of the popular apps, because what the bigger ones, Headspace is the one that I had right from the start. The thing I love about Headspace, I don't use it that often now, but I still have my subscription, because I must have been one of the first 10 or 15,000 people to use it, and my subscription is like dirt cheap. I think it's about 3 times what I started paying back when I first started using it. So it's one that I still recommend. And I don't even mind saying this. The guy that started Headspace as well, just download the app and look at some of his intro videos and his story, and how he came to find meditation. He's a guy called Andy Puddicombe, an English guy. He's got a voice that just it's like he speaks and it's like velvet. He's just got one of those voices. It's one of those very calming, soothing voices. That's where I would start.
Right.
If it's something that you got into, then there's loads of other. But I would say, if you're time poor, I'll not recommend any books or anything like that. Although, if you do fancy some reading, then I would suggest one of Arjuna Ashaya's books, and that's the bottom line on that. 200% Life, or Chasing More and Finding Enough, are his two books. But yeah, Headspace, because you can do it in like 2 minutes or 5-minute chunks.
Yeah.
And just have a little bit of guided. It's not for everybody, mate, and I know that. You know, but the point in it is, it's like whether or not your meditation is sitting focusing on your breath, you know, or sitting, you know, or whether your meditation is sitting with headphones on, listening to Pink Floyd in a dark room. You know, and everybody's meditation is different. You know, Karen's meditation, she's not watching right now, she's in bed, but I know that she will watch. So I say, like, her meditation's like ironing. I think it is. She does it. It seems like she does it daily.
Well, that's the thing, right? And for some people, it's out running in the hills. That's one of mine. But again, I think that's a space that I need to explore, because you know, meditation doesn't have to be looking at the dot just in front of your mind,
Yeah.
whatever it is, it can be out in nature, running, getting sweaty, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's the thing. Like, I haven't even explored it yet, so I don't know. I might
Well,
already be getting my meditation and I don't realize it.
yeah, exactly. You may well. So tell me a little bit about how you got into running, because I remember we've kind of, I think, had some conversations, and I have to say, not only a thank you, by the way, for coming on here, but and I know I said this at the time, but for anybody that that remembers the David Goggins challenge that I did, was it last year or the year before? It was literally at the start of the Russia Ukraine war, um, because I decided to raise money for the humanitarian appeal, and those runs in the middle of the night. So that David Goggins challenge I did, for anybody listening, it was 4 miles every 4 hours for 48 hours. So you basically ended up running like 48 miles. So it was knocking on, yeah, not a kick in the pants off 2 marathons.
Yeah.
So when I got to like the runs, so I started running at, I think, 5 o'clock on Friday night, and I was literally running for like 2 solid days, and I stopped running on Sunday evening. But the runs that I had to do that were the most painful were the ones that were in the middle of my night. So the ones that really rang a bell were like from 2 o'clock, I think 2 o'clock, and like 4 o'clock. It was absolutely horrible. And when I did the Facebook lives, very very briefly, there was just, and there was a few times, and you were up. Nobody else was up. Of course they weren't, because it was the middle of the night. But a familiar message, just the fact that one person on the other side of the world was watching it. Do you know what? I can't thank you enough, because it was like little, just that. It was enough for me to just like hold on to kind of to push through. So thanks for that, mate.
No, you're welcome. And it's really inspiring. I did a kilometer version of the miles, and I think I did it for I might have done it for 24 hours or 48 hours the previous year. And I'd messaged you and sent you on me little video things, because I wanted to track it and see,
Yeah.
remember it, and it's like, it's blinking tough, that, like,
Yeah.
I found, and I don't know if I'm interested, but for your perspective, I found the lack of sleep the most or not lack of sleep, but the sleep interruption the most difficult bit. Getting out and jogging and what have you, yeah, fine, no problem. But the
Yeah.
sleep and the trying to wake up in the middle of the night when your body's just saying, get your head back down.
Yeah, exactly the same. The biggest thing, if I was doing it again, and I've said to anybody, the one thing that I did that I'm pretty certain gave me a bit of a mental edge and a bit of a boost was, because I've done a lot of experimentation, and I've done quite a bit of juicing in a healthy way. So it's like, like extracting with a cold press juicer, so you're getting the nutrients out. And for that 48 hours, I decided to just juice, because I knew that, having listened to some of my pals that had done it before, they said coming back, having to get showered, having to get something to eat, and then trying to get your head down, and knowing the order in which to do that to maximize it. I was like, okay, bollocks to this. Do you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to be coming in from a run. I'm going to be jumping in the shower, and then I'm going to be jumping straight into bed. And then I'm going to be sleeping, so that I know that I can get up, and that I've got like 10 minutes to, like, my face down, chuck a juice down me. And if I need to walk, I can walk. But it turned out to be the best thing that I did. So the Yeah, so I had like a Sunday dinner. I think Karen knocked me up a Sunday dinner for when I finished. But other than that, the juice. But you're right. It was it still didn't help at like, 4 o'clock in the morning when you're waking up and or you're not waking up, but your alarm says you're due another 4 mile run. No. So what then? What possessed you to do ultra marathons then?
Well, familiar story here, mate. It's the thing called Sally. So she was at the time we were on it when we were first on exchange. I say we. She was on exchange. I was husband of, and she went through a patch that she didn't particularly enjoy her working environment. She enjoyed her work. She didn't enjoy some things, and she needed to, believe this or not, it's ridiculous that when I say it out loud, she needed a distraction. And so the distraction was training for ultra runs. And so she came home from work one day and said, right, we're doing ultras. And I was like, sorry, what? and that was it. And so we just committed to it. And I mean, we were both running at the time, but kind of like 5Ks or something, 5 miles maybe. And then it was a pretty steep learning curve, and it was like, okay, start, find a training plan and get out. And she'd go out, like she'd put the kids to, like, she was working full time as well, believe it or not. So we both did them. And we just like, I would drop the kids off at school at the time and daycare and stuff, whatever it was, and then just go out for a run. And like, I was in the fortunate position that I had the time to almost be a semi-professional athlete. Kids off to school, I've got the day to myself. I go and, I could come home and have a nap if I wanted or whatever. Where she would go and she'd put the kids to bed, go and run a marathon for training, come back in at 4 a.m, get her head down for a couple of hours and go and do a full day's work. And then the next day on tired legs, she'd wake up at 4 a.m and run to work, which was 30 Ks or something. And you're like so, but it was, that's the extreme what I'm talking about. That was your heavy sessions. But the process came about because she was unhappy and needed a distraction, and I've just supported her but got roped into it as well. And it was so I've done an ultra and a few runs, which was really, again, great growth experience. But to sing her praises, when Sally and I first got together, she broke her leg in a skiing accident and almost was 30 seconds away from having her right leg removed from just above the knee, because she broke her fib, smashed her ankle, and got compartment syndrome in for the bonus. Do you know compartment syndrome?
No.
So basically, a muscle has a sheath around it, and with the trauma that she'd experienced, the muscle trauma was swelling so bad that it was almost going to split the sheath, and that can have quite significant consequences. Yeah. And so she had pioneering surgery at the time. We were on ski champs, wherever it was, a place called Salbach, and so they sliced open the sheath around her calf muscle. She's got this big kind of 30 centimeter scar down outside of her right leg, and the muscle was swelling with the trauma. And I was there visiting her, and the doctors were saying, the swelling is so traumatic that we're considering removing her leg, and we've got 2 more measurements to take of the pressure and swelling, and if it doesn't level out or start reducing by the second measurement, the leg's coming off, because she'll lose it anyway and start to lose more. And so, thankfully, the final measurement they took, it just leveled out, and they said, okay, we'll that gives us time to now get another measurement. So she was literally 30 seconds away from losing her leg. when we got her back to the UK after ski champs, she then had to learn to walk. She had two bouts of 3 months of rehab and stuff. And this is why she became a fighter controller from the fast jet world, is because she lost her medcat. And so eventually, so I guess what I'm telling you is the fact that she does all these crazy runs it's not just impressive that she does it as a full-time working mother, blah 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 blah, but she had to learn to walk again, and she still now has a thing called drop foot, which is she's lost a lot of the use of the tendons in her foot and ankle, so she naturally, her foot wants to drag rather than walk. So every step she takes for running, she has to think about it. And so when she had wanted this distraction, from work, from a down period at work, and then we started running, like, it's just unbelievable that she could do this. And then, so she ended up doing an ultra run or several ultra runs. She did a 100-kilometer run in a day, and she did a thing called the Big Red Run, which is across the one of the deserts in Australia, which is Australia's version of the Marathon des Sables. So like a 5-6 day event. She did that as well, and it's just like all on the back of the fact that she almost, not on the back of it, but the fact that she almost lost her leg and had to learn to walk again, and it's like, some of these people are pretty impressive, and I'm lucky enough to have one of them as my wife,
Yeah, amazing, unbelievable.
Oh.
I think
my wife you should be having on, not me.
Listen, but interesting. If the accident that she'd had originally hadn't happened, would you have met her?
No, we so she'd already, we met on fighter controller course.
Okay.
So I was at Waddington on E3s, and they were trying a pilot scheme of sending some of the surveillance dudes back to Boomer to do the controllers course, to go back and be a controller. And she was coming from the fast jet world when they were getting rid of the F3s. They wanted to, find jobs for the backseaters. And so one of the week was to come and be a fighter controller, to go and be a TD on the E3.
Right.
And we both of us never made it back to the E3 is the long story short.
Okay. I got you. Right. Shall we do your next song? We've got two left.
Right.
We're gonna do always, if I said, let's see who's watching. This is how confident I am. It is an amazing story, isn't it, Colin? Colin's still watching, and Colin will know that if I just say beans on toast, Colin will know what the next song is. I'm fairly confident. If I said beans on toast, Colin, what's the song? Tell us. Don't let me down. I know you're a man that knows his music. Come on, beans on toast. Beans on toast.
Mate, while he's responding, can I die for a quick admin break?
Yes, you can.
Give me a second.
Yes, you can. Shall I, Colin? Shall I? Do you know what? I could just do that, couldn't I? Whilst John's away, I'm gonna play it, Colin, because I think that, one, because you're on, but two, I think as a little bit of a nod and a wink to the fact that you. So I don't know if the other guys will know. Oh, I'm fairly sure they will. Obviously, you were my very first guest on the podcast, and I will always remember. I'll always remember you stepping in for that. Straight in. Right. Okay. Let's see whether or not this works. Yeah. Honestly, I'm gonna. You failed. What did you fail at, Colin? What did you fail at? Oh, it's fine. You'll know when I when I share this.
Please don't go. 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 Please don't go.
Sorry about that.
I love you so. Please don't go.
Tune.
I want you to know.
Right. There we go. I better.
Did he get it?
Yeah. There we go. I'm gonna. There we go. Stop shading. Yeah. What I was saying. Sorry.
Did he get it?
Yeah, he got it, didn't you, Colin? You got it. No, he didn't. To be fair, I mean, I didn't really give that much of a clue, did I? I thought Colin just said when you nipped out there, Johnny said, "Go on, be a rebel and play it," and I wouldn't ordinarily do it because it's just a pain when you play the music and then a video that people might want to watch that gets partially muted because you've broken copyright rule in this country or that country. So I don't tend to do it. But because it was Colin that asked, and Colin was my first ever podcast guest on the JFDI podcast, and on his show, we did play it because I didn't know it was going to get pulled down. So, so we played a little bit of KWS and Please Don't Go.
Yeah.
Over to you, Mr. Knox.
So this really is a celebration of a great mate of mine, one of many, that we've known over the years that is sadly no longer with us, and that's Russ Cowan. So when I came back from Saxa in '92, I got posted to Boomer. And Russ was there was a few guys at the time in the friendship group who just welcomed me in, again, going back to that making mates and joining social groups, that skill set that we're talking about earlier. Russ was incredibly generous and just, welcomed me into his friendship group. And that, along with a couple of the other songs that you'll have seen of the 15, just remind me of Russ, and was an amazing mate, and just sad to not have him around.
I know. Sadly, one of the too many of our friends that are no longer here. I think, and as emotive a subject it is to talk about, I think it's, I've said it so many times before that, we respect their memory by keeping their names and the memories and some of the stories, good, bad, warts and all. That's how we respect them, by keeping them alive in our hearts. And let's be honest, that it was when you were with Russ on a detachment up to Buchan that we first met as
That's
well.
Correct. Yeah.
I don't think we should talk about that.
Time. That was like a 2 or 3 week block of my life, and it's so significant for so many different reasons. It's
really
a shocker. Oh yeah.
What happened during that period of time?
Well, it was one of many. I'm sure you would clarify this. One of many periods where the Beck's challenge was broken. But I'm sure that didn't last very long. I'm sure every time there was a new one, it was broken. But at the rugby club, that was a great night. It was the weekend where Oz got stabbed. That was that period. And it was just an altogether great debt, but it was on the back of Russ and I being down at RAF Ash doing our X course, and that's why we came up to Buchan to get the
Got you.
put the course into experience, and then we and a bunch of other guys took it down to Boomer to pass on that training and progress the ops from the old system into down the bunker.
Yeah. Wow. What a time. What is your do you have any like real kind of standout? I'm sure that you'll have loads, but is there a moment that you can share that stands out above all others when you think of Russ and that kind of friendship that maybe gives people that didn't know him a little bit of an insight into his character?
He's just so generous, and he was one of these guys that the RAF didn't get. It didn't get him, but his what he was capable of didn't suit the model that the RAF wanted. So, like, he didn't progress past SAC, but within a couple of months of him leaving the RAF, he'd joined a company and was one of the directors of it, and he had the gift of the gab. He was a super intelligent guy, but again, just like he wasn't like the model that the RAF wanted, but he was such an amazing human. I'm trying to think of an experience. So probably for most of your audience, this will be an appropriate one for that, but it doesn't really tell the picture of who and what Russ was. But I remember being down on the Ash course, and we did kind of afternoons, evenings for 3 weeks, which was very, made it very easy then to finish on the afternoon, go out and get smashed down in Kent in Margate and Ramsgate. And you still had the morning to recover before you had to get up and go to work the next afternoon. So it was great for us, young lads, but it wasn't great as a model for, for the good things we were supposed to be doing. But one of these particular nights, I was down with Scouts McCann. He was one of the staff down there at the time, and it was just we had a great crew down there. And I remember one particular night being out on the lash, as pretty much every night was. And it was coming towards the end of the evening. We'd had a skinful. I think we'd had a dance, and we'd gone for a pizza. And we were sat down. We were sat down like on the main road, just on the curb, munching into this pizza, a pair of us. And there would been a bunch of others. Matty McKee was with us, and a bunch of other guys, right? And it was a real good crowd. Probably Scouts as well. And there was a couple of the local hooligans that just wanted some action, and started coming, giving it all the big boys around us, like gobbing off, trying to goad us into having a fight. And I just remember just beautiful quality timing. And like they were kind of over our shoulder. So I'm here and Russ is sat next to me, and munching away on pizza. We are shooting the shit with each other. These guys gobbing off, chimping on, wanting to fight. And I'm thinking, oh, here we go. Because, you get used to it, don't you, being the rough lads in your local towns, and you're just there, you're targets for people wanting fights. And so these guys are giving it some. And Russ, like, big slice of pizza, and he just kind of takes it, swallows his mouthful of pizza. And he just looks up at these lads and he went, tell you what, I'll finish my pizza, then we'll talk about fighting. and these lads just kind of wandered off in the night. Just thought, bonza. Because none of us wanted to fight at the time, we're just like having a good night and what have you. But that is one of those moments, like, again, it kind of epitomizes the beautiful human he was. He just diffused that situation. Like, he wasn't a hard lad, Russ. He could handle himself, but just that sharpness and ability to just diffuse the situation, and the night carried on, and he was a fab human.
Yeah. A great moment. It's I don't have a drink. I've got my bottle of water, but it's as good as anything to make that little toast, isn't it? To absent friends, as we love to do on here. I mean, yeah, like you say, people who, yeah, and like so many, if we were. And then I've learned to kind of be much more accepting of these things now. But let's these were guys, Russ, Ross, CJ, the list goes on. Dave Phillips, and on and on. But in our hearts, we these are guys that should still be with us just now. But I think what we were starting to say earlier was that it, at the age that we're at now, I think it makes, certainly for me, it's been, each time another one of our, responses, as it so beautifully kind of, put, another response fades. It makes me even more grateful for the time that I've got on this planet. And I think it acts as a reminder to not put the things off that you might want to do, just to a reminder that you've only got one shot at this, to make it, make of it what you will, but also as a reminder to look around and realize how lucky we are. For all the troubles and the hassles and frustrations that we and ups and downs that we might have of day-to-day life, we're here and we have our families around us, and that's important, because as we've seen, there's so many of our old pals that are no longer with us. So it's keeping their memory alive and and keeping going. That's what every single one of them would wanted. Russ and so
for sure. And we were incredibly lucky enough to our families connected as well. So it wasn't just, Russ was a Scopey mate on the piss, he taught me about parenting. I don't mind saying that out loud. He, the good bits of my parenting style come from Russ.
Yeah.
There's plenty of crap bits of my parenting style, but the good ones.
Yeah, I love that.
We always used to say, when I'd be a proper Raji dad getting, annoyed at the kids for playing in the mud. And Russ's, again, this is an endearing memory of him that the kids know well enough, and they say the same now is, don't worry, it'll wash.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's so true, though. It is.
Yeah.
Should we do your last song? Because this is a newer stereophonic song. It's off their latest album, right?
Yes.
Which Karen and I had the pleasure of seeing live just after it came out. So it's from the album with a great name as well. So it's from the album called Ucha.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which I always thought was much more of a Scottish sounding thing than Welsh. But anyway, it's forever from that album, Ucha. It's a track called Forever.
Mm-hmm. And I think this is just, I think I try to pick times in my life to have as the songs to talk as springboards for talking points, and this is the now. This is the now and the future, I guess, and it's one of my favorite songs at the moment. And I've got this playlist that I have for running, and I've lucky enough to have these headphones and me Garmin, and I've got a playlist on me watch, so I don't have to take my phone out running with it. Another bulky thing to drag around. And it's just one of a handful of songs I've got on there, and I it lifts me up. Again, take you back to what I first said: is I'm not a muso. I couldn't even tell you what the words are or what the song's about, but I love how it makes me feel. It lifts me, and and there's a bunch of songs I've got on that playlist that, like my son who's 16, he's introducing me to songs now, and maybe don't pick him up on the rap stuff that he wants in introduce me to, but like there's certain songs like of the Stereophonics, like he's introduced me to songs of theirs that I hadn't previously known. And I'm like, he's got a great musical connection, and that I've never had. You know, I've only ever heard music that my mates have introduced me to, or whatever. You know, I've just happened to hear on a radio. Frankie Blunden was a real one. Again, first posting down at Saxa, he was into Genesis and Prince. Like he introduced me to those, you know, and I'm like, again, he is a muso, so I love him for that. But like I literally had no clue. I think I'd probably listened to Madness and one or two other bands as a kid, U2 maybe. And then you meet all these people in the early years of your career, and you know, you just get the flavor of all their music. And I think that's why my taste is still so eclectic, because you know, my taste is representative of all of those people and all of those.
And you hit the nail on the head for me. That I said right at the start of the show. That's what I love about this, because a person's taste in music, I think, says, you know, it can say a lot about the kind of person they are, about the kind of things that they like, but also about how diverse, or you know, how open-minded people can be when you see the number of different kind of scattered genres that people choose. So yeah, you hit the nail on the head. Yeah, I totally get it, and that's what I love about listening to the choices that people have, is that if the answer to why you've chosen a song is simply it makes me feel good, then what better reason to have a musical choice? Fantastic. So listen, we're about to hit the 2 hour mark, which is good going.
For you in the middle of the night.
It's okay, because I've got just a few more questions to ask you, but this hopefully this will work. You were mentioning there about integrating technology with your running, and kind of talking about, you know, having your playlists and you know, the advances, and I'm sure that you onto workouts onto Strava, using your Garmin as running. And we're now as a technologist by day, I still have a keen interest in everything going on in tech, and I'm quite driven by, I think, from an ethical perspective of what's happening with artificial intelligence, right? And the only reason I'm telling you that is because I know you'll appreciate, I gave ChatGPT a few prompts before we chatted this evening, and I let it know a little bit about what I know about you.
All right.
Right. Don't worry, I didn't name you. I didn't put your address. It's just a robot. I was nice, and this is the thing. This is the thing that I'm trying to tell everyone is that artificial intelligence, it's like they're like our kids. It's like the more that we can show them that we're actually, you know, a force for good, they might not destroy us. So I told ChatGPT a little bit about you, and I asked it to give me 10 questions that were quick fire that I could ask you. So I'm going to ask you them now, and you can see between ChatGPT and myself. Let's just see where we go with this. Are you up?
I'm up for it, man. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So quick fire. Here we go. Road running or trail running?
Trail.
Morning run or evening run?
Morning.
Newcastle brown ale or a refreshing post-run smoothie?
Post-run smoothie.
Running solo or with a group?
Group.
Run along the coast or through Newcastle's historic streets?
Coast.
Favorite running route, parks or urban paths?
Parks.
Running shoes, tried and true classics or the latest tech?
Oh, probably tried and tested.
Nice. Okay. Oh, this one I love. And I didn't prompt it with this at all, right? This was ChatGPT. Best way to recover post-run, ice bath or a relaxing massage?
Wow. I'd probably go both, to be honest, but
Yes, why not?
yeah.
Quickfire 9. Bucket list running destination. Newcastle's Quayside or Australia's Bondi Beach?
Oh.
Oh,
Probably the Quayside. Probably Newcastle's Quayside, I reckon.
you can take the boy out in Newcastle.
Yeah.
There are some,
Even if the accent's soft.
and the last one is similar because it's bang up to date here. I actually think that ChatGPT has done all right here. So the thrill of the finish line, the Great North Run, or a major Australian marathon. Well, you've done an ultras, so I think we know the answer. And I take it your ultras were in Australia.
Yes, I've done the Great as well.
Have you done the Great North Run as well? Oh, there we go. When did you do that?
Oh my goodness. 2005.
2005.
I think so. Yeah.
So you were running back then. When did you have you always kind of run and then stopped for a while and got back into it, sort of stop start?
Exactly. I mean, I ran at school, but I was a kid. I was the runt of the school, so I was never any good, but I always enjoyed it.
Yeah.
And it definitely start and stop. I've when I've been drinking more, I've ran less, and when I've drank less, I've ran more. It's probably good.
Yeah, I think that resonates. Yes.
Yeah.
What is how do you do you now kind of know? And I'm curious in this because I think I know now. For me, it is a run, and actually getting outside. Sometimes it can be like a walk that becomes a run, but I just need sometimes to like get my heart rate so high that I'm sweating buckets, and I know now that sort of release of adrenaline, like getting the heart rate up. I think I appreciate how important it is because there's periods of my life in the past where, like you say, where more alcohol's been consumed, probably not such great nutrition, and exercise goes by the wayside and the weight goes up, and you kind of then wonder why you're not feeling so great up here as well. All connected, right? So, I guess what is it? How often do you go out running now? Are you training for anything at the moment? Is there anything?
I've kind of given up doing events, and I really and it's taken me a while to get here, but I've realized that I just enjoy being fit. And I enjoy exercising and the challenge, what you talked about before about the challenges, and realizing what your limits are and trying to push through them. And as soon as you do, then it's the next, what's the next challenge? Then they're becoming less and less frequent because I just enjoy getting out now. And it's less about the pee and cave and blah, 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 blah. It's just about getting out and enjoying it and trying to stay healthier for longer.
I've been asked this question. I remember talking about doing things that were conducive to a healthier way of life, making small changes that would help you, be healthier for longer. And somebody, I remember it was at work. This was before I left Sky. I remember having this because it was when I was working at Sky, I started to kind of embark upon this, well, what if I could be a wee bit better, a wee bit healthier, a wee bit sort of happier? And I remember having the conversation around the time when because I remember the movie Fat, Sick and Nearly Dead. I know it sounds quite morbid, but do you know it?
No, not at all.
It's a it's a documentary by an Australian guy called Joe Cross, who was like morbidly obese. He was like he worked in a high flying, I think he worked in stocks and trades in like Australia. He was constantly out, whining and dining with like, other bigwigs, and his lifestyle was restaurants, alcohol, fat cigars, very little sleep, all of that sort of stuff. And his doctor told him that he was going to be dead within a few years, and he went on a bit of a like full 180, and he turned it all around by juicing, and he did he did like 60 days, and he documented the whole thing. But he went from Australia to America, and he did it going round America, and the guy's become like, a massive name. But he's not, and what I loved about the story was that then when you dug into it, he did a second movie where he then went to help somebody else, and then one of the guys that he helped, you saw him, he'd become a big advocate for juicing, and people were being documented within this sort of like movie journal docu, and their lives had been changed through juicing, and it was whilst I was at Sky that I came across that, and it was that for me that was the thing that kind of made me question, what I guess the things that I was putting in here to start with, and kind of started on that journey of sort of healthier. And I remember saying to this guy, he said, I'm going to eat what I want, I'm going to drink what I want, I'm going to basically consume and just live my life how I want now, because what you're talking about might get you a few years at the end of your life expectancy, but by that time you'll be in a home dribbling a load of nonsense anyway, so it's not really worth it. And I said to him, I don't think you're getting it, and it's the whole point of what we've been discussing and what we do on this show. I was like, I don't think you understand. I said, it's not about those last few years, it's about the journey between here and now. It's like, if you're doing all of the stuff that you're comfortable with right now, eating what you want, when you want, drinking what you want, when you want, but you're saying that actually, like, you wake up on a Monday morning with a head, like you feel rough as get out, and then you're dreading the week, and then, you can't wait for it to get to Friday. That doesn't sound like that it's a life filled with much joy. And yet, for me, it's make those changes so that you can enjoy every day between now and the last one that you have, which, by the way, we don't know when that is. It could be tomorrow.
And have a go. So what you've just described is I mean, where Sally and I are both vegetarian, we had a spell at being vegan, and our health kind of grew massively and I dropped like 5 kilos almost overnight because when we went veggie, it was probably similar-ish time to when I stopped drinking, and both of those had a significant change on my health, probably, and well-being. And I find it really interesting, the people that are open to this, right? And they're probably the same people that are open to lots of things in life that are worth considering. You don't have to take them all up, but whatever. But there's so many people I meet that are closed off about it and think because I'm a vegetarian, I'm unhappy with my life, and because all I do is eat grass, and how can I possibly be enjoying life by not eating meat and not drinking alcohol? And it's like what's wrong with you? Why does that make me a sad person that doesn't enjoy life? My quality of life since I've taken those decisions has exploded in such a positive way.
Yeah.
And I think probably because I'm able to view it from both sides of it, because I've been the other guy as well.
Yeah.
I remember one particular time being at Boomer as a young crackerjack. Me and Paddy Parry. I don't know if you ever knew Paddy Parry, but him and I were typical of the groups that hung around together. Big drinkers, stupid idiots that we were. Him and I came up with this idea one time that we would drink every night for 2 months and see what happened. And like, I can't even remember what happened because we drank every night for 2 months. And I've done it. I've had that lifestyle, and I've got this other one now. And I'm not that guy that says you've got to live this lifestyle because I've done it and I've seen the light and it's better. Like, live how you want to live, but like, it's all those people that tell me that I must be such a loser for the choices I've made. It's like, okay.
Yeah. But that's where it's interesting, because that's for me, having delved into this kind of world of wellness now, that's where I have found that there's a stigma there in itself. Ironically, there is a stigma in this holistic world of well-being, where as a human you do this surprising thing and you take back control of your own well-being. You take control of what you're putting in here, and you use different natural remedies where you can. And I'm not having a big shout and dig at big pharma, although I have my views. But I think where possible, humans, we can eat conducive, and I know that cost comes into it for a lot of people as well, but there are ways and means where we can make our life more comfortable by making some sacrifices in areas where we're fueling our bodies more effectively than just filling our bodies.
Yeah.
And I think that that a lot of illness, and again, I've learned a lot of this through the Wim Hof instructor journey and learning more about the physiology and understanding of how our nervous system works, autoimmune system works, is like a lot of the illness and disease that we have in our body has been fucking put there by ourselves.
Yes.
Yeah. Whether it's by something that we put in here or something that we put in here or here, because it's not always about the food. It can be things we're listening to causing yeah. So there we go.
Can I quickly ask you about your juicing? So do you plan to have periods of juicing, or do you just do it when you feel like it? Or
I kind of I've been through a period of kind of looking to do it for a period so like I went through a phase of kind of going, well, I need to be having it every day, or I'll incorporate it as part of a meal. But the way that I do it now, and it's worked out pretty well, is that I make these ginger shots religiously. So I'll make them pretty much every week. And basically I have a big bag of oranges and as much ginger as I can hold, and I juice it all, and I have like a couple of shots, like I put a little blend of turmeric in there as well, and I have that every morning. And then the other juices I make, there's one that I love, because I can make it in bulk, and I can make enough for like about a week and freeze it. And I'll do that at least sort of once every 3 months. I'll make sure I'm having like at least one juice a day, like through like a week, so that I know that one meal will be replaced by a juice. I think the big one that I did was 40 days of like just drinking juice. And I haven't done anything as big as that at the moment. Although that said, over the last week, I've been incorporating it a lot more. So I guess to answer your question, I've been more structured with it than I am at the moment. But I've been back on it and really enjoying it. It's funny. If you don't, because you're getting all of the nutrition in your body that your body needs. The first week of the first one that I did was so interesting for me, because I was starting to, the biggest thing was the headache when I stopped the coffee after about 3 days. But then and after sort of 4 days, I had headache and I felt really sluggish. And then once I got over that, my energy levels seemed to be boosted. And I think that was just a little bit of detoxing with I wasn't putting any other toxins in my body. And by the time I got to day 40, I'm not joking, I'd experimented a little bit in ways that I wouldn't do now, but we learn, right? So example, when I was not eating and just having juice, I wouldn't do Wim Hof breathing in the shower. That's not a good idea. And because I collapsed.
I was just going to say, is that how that ended?
Yeah, that didn't end well. And Karen came running up the stairs and said to me, I said, I've just slipped. And she looked at me, and then the time that I'd take it to come downstairs, she looked at me and went, "You didn't slip." And I was like, "No, I didn't." But at the end of that 40 days of juicing, and it was a big, I was trying to lose a little bit of weight and just feel really healthy, but I was running every day as well, and I was doing the ice baths every day. It was February, March time, so I was getting the benefits of the cold water. And at the end of that period of just juicing, I've felt the best I've ever felt in my life. And I mean, I'm talking like healthier, like more. I felt I was breathing more freely. I felt my skin was clearer. I felt I had more energy. I had more focus. Things were kind of clear. My mood was generally. I didn't need to. I didn't need to. I wasn't having to be. I was already being proactive in what I was doing, and taking care of exercise every day. On that juice, I was doing things like yoga and a lot of meditation. So I was doing a lot of good for my health. So it probably, factors well that I was doing all this good stuff and I felt amazing. And I think that's testament to why I'm doing what I'm doing now. I'm not, and like you said, I'm hoping that I'm not kind of trying to thrust it down people's, throats. Everybody's entitled to live their life the way that they want. I just think that it's important that people understand what choices are available to them and the repercussions on the journey, depending on what choices you make in life.
And it's funny. It's funny though, people's responses to like the choices that you make. Like it was when it just reminded me of when I did stop drinking initially, and then the people that knew that John Knox the drinker, they almost had to justify to me why they were drinking, and it's like, no, this is my decision for me. I'm not judging you. Like, you do what you want to do. It's totally okay. But it's the same thing with like. It's funny going back to that Aussie culture thing though, and the that tough bunch. The amount of blood, and it's probably not Australia. If I came back to the UK, it'd probably be exactly the same as well. The amount of people that want to banter me, and again back to me being rubbish at banter, about the fact that these choices that I'm making, and point out to me how wrong I am, not because of how it makes me feel, but because it's different to their choices. It's like, whatever, man.
You hit the nail on the head. It's the reason that people do it is because it makes them feel insecure. And that, but again, my view on that now is I'm 52. yeah, 52 in September, 51 at the moment still. But I'm too old. I'm too old to be putting on any faces anymore. I'm too old to try and pretend to be somebody that I'm not. So you know, and an actual fact, because that living that kind of life can become, it's very tiring to be somebody different for different people that you're entertaining, whether that's going out for drinks or working or a relationship with your wife or kids. It's like, you know, I'm all about certainly looking for, you know, when you're at interactions with people, um, eh, having an appreciation for what other people might be going through at any point in time. However, at the same time, I I I, I really I don't, you know, I can't be bothering about the things that I might say that might upset people. I know now that, do you know what? You're never gonna, you know, what's it they say? You know, you can please all the people some of the time and some of the people all the time, but you can't please all the people all the time. You know, and we'll know better than, you know, most with our history and what we were known as back in the day. There are some people that'll flat out never like you. I'm cool with that. I don't give a shit anymore. You know, and I think that if there are people that still feel that in some way, shape, or form that they have to live a life like that, um, then again, I'm totally cool with that. That's entirely up to them. You know, I do find, I'd say I find it a little bit sad, but no, not for me because I'm living my life.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
what
yeah.
we got to do, right?
Aye. Yeah,
Listen,
yeah.
amazing. I could sit here and talk to you all night, mate. But my wife might wake up now. We're in
Is it morning?
Yeah, I know. We're in that period of the evening. But listen, thank you so much for doing this. I've really, really enjoyed catching up.
So good, mate.
It's been absolutely fantastic to see you, to catch up, and listen to in your endeavors to just enjoy that journey more. Man, keep applying the old JFDI. I'm loving it. And
Thanks.
I,
Yeah.
I'll just say, I'll just give you one thing for thought, because never say never. I think is all I would say, and I'm referring to. I love, because I like to think that where, you know, you were saying about you just enjoy being fit now, you enjoy being healthy, and you enjoy doing these things. Nothing sets the inspiration or the motivation levels, like setting another challenge. And all I'm putting out there for you to think about is that whether you set yourself another one or not, even if you don't, someone else, if what you've told me tonight is anything to go by, someone else quite close to you might set you another challenge.
Oh, I'm always, the thing is, I'm always up for them. Like I almost did. I was following a guy recently who you may, Sean Conway, did 102 triathlons, like full distance triathlons consecutively in 102 days, and it was like it blew my mind.
Wow.
And so I love to observe these people that are driven like that. He's not just driven, he's incredibly talented and fit and healthy, right? And the fact that his body can withstand that, I would call it punishment, but you know, that endurance and what have you. I love the idea of, and I almost, you know, on the lift he gave me watching that, I almost set myself a challenge, not quite like his, but you know, just a random one, like doing 1 kilometer on the first of the month and going up to the end of the month.
2, 3, 4, 5, yeah.
I'd read about somebody doing that, and I thought, wow, that sounds pretty impressive. And then I actually thought about where I am in my working life and what have you, and like, actually, can I achieve that? I don't like to set myself up for failure either. So, I'm open to challenges, but realistic ones,
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
absolutely. I'm always up for challenges, mate. But yeah, there's so much out there. There's so much out there to have a go at, and I'll probably do the Goggins thing again before too long, because, like, whilst we both say it's quite difficult dragging your backside out of bed, it's awesome. Like, and that them endorphins and what have you, when you do something, if that old phrase of, if you could bottle the post feeling to get a quick glug of that before for the pre-event, like, you'd make a million, wouldn't you? I love it, but sometimes it's tough. Yeah, listen, before we close, can I just thank you again? You, like, what you do in this and all of the other things you do that I don't get to be part of back in the UK, it is amazing. Like, I love observing the journey you're on, and I love, like, this. I love watching people that are blethering on and talking about their times gone by, and it's awesome to listen to people and hear their stories that we talked about before, that you never took the time to ask previously. So when there's an hour or a couple of hours and you're able to watch, like I do, 6 o'clock in the morning when you're live on a Friday, Thursday night, it's my Friday morning here. I'll sit and watch it while I'm having my breakfast, and it's on in the car. I'm listening to it as I'm driving to work. It lifts me no end. So thank you.
Oh, thank you for saying that. That means a lot. And I genuinely, it's why I started doing it. I think I've learned, and I don't mind saying this, is that actually what you've said, that lift, knowing that there might be one person watching, and actually knowing that having the chat, and I've said to everybody that I've spoken to that comes on here, you might not be the kind of person that wants to watch this conversation back, but I have said to everybody and encouraged, whether it's tomorrow or whether it's 2 months or a year down the line, it's amazing what you can learn from listening to yourself. And I don't mean that in any arrogant sense. It's like, a lot of what I hear on here, and a lot of the things that I say and I talk about at any given point in time, whether it's Facebook Lives or on my radio show or on here, a lot of it I need to hear myself. So it's, and it does for me as well. Doing it and having that engagement and knowing that we're still contributing to that community, it means so much, which is why I'll continue to do it, because I get a lot out of it. And when I've said to people, for me, I see it as it's quite selfish in that respect. I do it and I get a massive amount out of it, but actually, if I'm getting that much out of it and other people can benefit as well, that's win-win to me. So thank you very much for your very kind words.
Thanks, mate. Thank you.
Another reason for me to just keep doing it then.
Keep doing it.
JFDI. And do you know what? I can take that a step further, because one of the people that you mentioned tonight who was watching earlier, I'm sure he did, had to see this on catch up. Yeah, look who's watching.
Oh, legend.
So I'm going to speak to Frankie, because I think we might get him on as well. Which would be great.
Like, there's no end of people that you can get on and then get them on again. You probably had folk that have been on several times. And
my journey in parallel with Ali Bax, I think Ali and I, although we only did one official sort of JFDI podcast, there's been times Ali and I have jumped on. So I think I've done like 3 with Ali. But every conversation with Ali is great, and I'm getting to work with Ali next week as well. Wow. We're going down to. It was through him that I was invited to a festival down in Dorset So I'm going down to do my Wim Hof instructor bit, and he's selling the Law 55 clubber.
Wow. Is that different to the other festival that you've just done then?
Yeah, the Cranique festival that I did last week, that was the glass walking and fire walking and shamanism and yoga and soulful.
Awesome. It's so good, man.
It was amazing. That was amazing.
Yeah.
I haven't, do you know, I've not even posted anything about it. I think there's still a little bit of me that I've not looked through all my pictures, but I'm like, there were things that I was a little bit wary about that day. Like, I'd never walked on glass. I certainly hadn't walked on fire, apart from maybe a few occasions at Buchan where, you know, or in my childhood where I'd like inadvertently set things on fire and had to run through
the fire that you've made.
So that was amazing, and I like I say, I think this country, I think where you are at the moment in the world, I think that Australia, in terms of these approaches to wellness, I it's just my view. I think that as a culture, they're a little bit more embracing of something different than we are in this country at the moment. Still, I think there's still, like I said, I think there's still a bit of a stigma about, ironically, a stigma about actually taking control of your own well-being. I mean, but then that's a lot of the thinking in here, isn't it? Of a lot of people is that, well, you know, if I don't feel right, I'll just go to the doctor and I'll get a pill, and that'll cure it. And I do worry a little bit. Have you heard the latest on the pill that's emerging to cure cancer? Yeah, they found a tablet that, or they found it's a strain. Ironically, you remember Andy O'Hare?
Mm-hmm.
Andy O'Hare, commonly known as AOH. So the strain that's given them a breakthrough in developing this cancer tablet is called AOH 1996, which is probably Andy O'Hare's prime years. So maybe wow. So yes, but again, all joking aside, I think, you know, they will continue to create tablets for everything, but at what cost, I say. Anyway, yes. Pharmaculture, yes, I know, another conversation entirely. Anyway, listen, John, thank you so much for coming on, for sharing your journey, and for whatever happens, please, let's stay in touch. And what's the chances of you being back in the UK? Do you visit?
Not an awful lot, no.
But life's good out there, so that's what's important.
You know, my dad and my brothers, and I've still got my best mate in the world still in the UK, and you know, so hey, I'm sure we'll come back from time to time, but and I'd love to hook up. Like when we came back at Christmas, there was a part of me that thought I would get a chance to hook up, but just my time became very compressed in the UK.
It does, it absolutely does. Now, I listen, I've tried to work it out last year with a couple of the guys just coming up from England, and sometimes it doesn't pan out that way. So things will happen when they'll happen. Listen, here's one question for you, just to leave you on. Is there anything about home that you miss? Might even just be something small. Is there anything that you miss about home that you can't get where you are?
There's loads I miss. The thing I would say is probably the hug of loved ones.
Oh,
I mean, you know, that it's a bit soft, isn't it? But like, there's loads I miss. There's smells. There's what do you call it? Mackerel. I mean, I don't eat fish anymore either, but I used to love mackerel. I kind of get my hands on mackerel out here. Not that I would, but so like, there's so much I could reel off. You know, we'd be here for another couple of hours, but yeah, there's bits I miss, but the lifestyle and the warmth, sun is middle of winter out here and the sun is blazing out there. It'll be top 28 degrees or something today. It's beautiful.
It's always taps off.
It's always tough. So it's the quality of life and what that big yellow thing in the sky and
Yeah.
and a bunch of less clouds, what that does for lifestyle is unbelievable.
Well, long may it last. You enjoy your Australian adventure, and until the next time,
Yeah.
I've had a blast. John Knox, this has been your JFDI podcast. I don't have a red book, but thank you so much. I shall
Anybody wants to come out, they're always welcome. I've got a spare room and plenty of house. Fab. People are always welcome.
I'll just get that edited and sort of like put out for you, so you'll have the knocking on the door.
All
right,
lovely to speak to you. Thank you again. Keep it up.
You too, mate. Thank you so much. See you later.
Yeah.
Cheers, pal.
Yeah.